Okay, so I've got here a model of the existing building that I'm working on for, well, let's say it's a hotel, and I want to plan out the main spaces and the relations between those using massing tools in Revit. And so I've got here some things I've just been placing to play around, so I might just select all of that with a filter and delete it. Maybe we want furniture or entourage or casework. That'll do. Oh, and so what are these things? I've got some, so I should have deleted things earlier, some arrays there, and another nice thing about 2020, just while I'm doing this, if you haven't used 2020 yet, it's got a much better filter tool than this version of Revit. I've got a few things here just to delete manually. Yeah, sure. Yep, sure. Yeah, no, that's fine. And especially with the floor material like that, it's pretty awful. So I'll go to hidden line. And yeah, that's cleaned up enough, I think, to do what I want. That is, oh yeah, now another little tip there. If you're selecting lots of things with a window, turn off select by face. But make sure you do know about that option because it is really useful to have on sometimes as well. So you're often going to be toggling that on and off if you haven't used it very much. Came in a little while ago, but again, just to make clear, when you click on a face, if it's turned on, you can select an object that way. When it's turned off, though, you can click inside those areas like floors and select things with a window without getting the floor when you don't want it. That's a really handy thing. And when we start doing massing, that's a really good one to know about as well. So I've got enough room then to start putting some massing in. So on the Massing and Site tab, I'm going to go and make an in-place mass. And the reference planes are annoying me too. But I'll, no, sorry, I'm going to delete those too because that's just annoying. Okay, so again, on the Massing and Site tab, in-place mass. So you get this message about showing the mass being enabled. So that's this button over here on the left, on the first button on the Massing and Site tab. So it's basically telling me that it's going to turn that on so I can see the massing that I'm creating. And I've just left the default name Mass 1. So then I can start drawing using the shapes. So the idea when you're doing massing for conceptual modelling is that you want at least a different element or a different component, or you'll see in a minute, form is the other term, for each of your spaces. There are different approaches then to the way you group it, moving on to things like fire stairs and other primary elements, but I'll start off just with some different forms. So again, you've got these shape drawing tools, and I might just start with the simplest one, which is a rectangle. A line, I suppose, is simpler, but lines can make more complex shapes, so rectangles are often going to give you the simplest thing. And then make sure you realise that you've got options then to either draw on a face or draw on a work plane. At first you might not notice a huge difference because here it will draw on probably the floor surface or that outside plane which is at the floor level anyway. But it's not a bad idea to be sure of where you're drawing, and if you choose instead of draw on face, draw on work plane, then it gives you the option there to choose a particular level. We're on the ground floor plan, so of course I'm going to choose ground floor level, and then I'm going to draw some zones. So, well, an obvious one would be the fire stairs, so I'll just do a rectangle around those. Really simple, and then maybe, again, just going to think about the sides here. So that's Mary Street where the main entrance would be, and Reservoir Street over here on the right. So maybe I'm going to have my main entrance here, and there'll be a big foyer, and maybe an area that's connected to the restaurants and the other things in the hotel. So I might do a big area for that. And we can adjust it, of course. The whole idea of this is that it's flexible and we can change it depending on the requirements. And so I might just again do some more rectangles for different areas, trying to think about the sorts of things you'd have in a hotel, and trying not to make them overlap either. That'll cause some problems. Here we go. It's telling me they're overlapping, but I know they're just touching. I'm fairly sure they are. And, well, I might just leave it at that for now and switch to another view where I can see these things a bit more clearly. So what I often do when I'm working with massing is I'll make views just for the massing. So looking down at my 3D views, we've got that default 3D view that comes up when you click on the house. And if I duplicate that, sorry, this is the annoying thing. When you're in a mass, yeah, we've got to finish the mass before we can do certain things with views. So I'll do that, and it'll tell me, yep, it'll give me a warning telling me there's no solid geometry there, but that's okay. So then I will duplicate the view and rename it to something that tells me what the view is. So I'll say mass only. And then I'll bring up my visibility graphics. Oh, well, in this case it makes no difference. So that's just a habit, but yeah, here it will be the same whether I choose duplicate or duplicate with detailing, because I don't have any detailing. Yeah, so detailing is basically anything on the Annotate tab. Detail lines and dimensions, things like that, and text. Okay, so now I'm going to go VV, which brings up the visibility, double V. If you, in the Properties panel, click on that button next to Visibility Graphics, it does the same thing. Visibility Graphics Override is what it says fully, but just think about it as visibility. No one really does much with graphics overrides these days, because you'll see there's a better way now. So, okay, so then quick chance to look at these things which you might not have seen before. The buttons there that let you choose all and none are really handy. So I can just choose all, turn everything off, and then go none, and turn massing back on. So that way I've got just the massing, and I've obviously done this a little bit before, so I'm going to delete my old mass earlier and just look at the new one. So there's my mass shape, and I'm going to go to, again, edit in place, and we've got the shapes. So again, if you haven't done massing very much before, the main thing you've got to realise is that you've got the shapes that I've just been drawing, which are essentially 2D shapes that are flat, of course, being 2D, except that some of them are not just 2D. To make it confusing, there are things like 3D splines and points as well that can be in different planes. And it gets a little bit confusing, but essentially you can think of them as 2D shapes mostly to start with. And then you have forms. So forms are essentially when they become 3D. And there are different ways of making forms, but the most common way, or the way you'll start, is just by extruding. And to extrude a form, you simply select a shape, and then choose solid form, or click on the top of the button, and it will extrude it for you. And you get the handles, which are the same as what you have in 3ds Max for X, Y, and Z. Again, this helps the colour theory, red, green, blue equals X, Y, Z. Red's X, green is Y, and Z is blue. Yeah, that's it. So I'm only going to use the blue arrow here to change the Z or the height, and that's as simple as it is. So then also notice that the shapes are grouped automatically. But sometimes it can be a bit unpredictable. So until I've extruded this one, I was getting confused about how they're meant to be grouped, but now that I have, it seems to be behaving. And I might just give you some other examples. So if I draw some lines over to the side, I'm just making sure I'm going to go put them on the right level. Just so you can see again how massing works. If I draw a shape over here that's not closed, and then I'll do another one that is. I can extrude the closed shape, and notice if I select that line, it selects the whole shape. It determines on its own how they're meant to be connected. It just does what it thinks makes sense. But you know, it's not 100%, so sometimes we'll group things in a bit of a random way, but you can always select them individually with control. And if you want to select them separately when they are grouped, you just select once and then click again to get an individual line or segment. So you can always get back to the original points, and you can even separate them and then add more. So it's a bit different to solid modelling, where you draw a sketch and they're always separate shapes. You just need to make sure the ends are connected. Here it goes a bit further and connects them. So this one over here, normally if you were doing solid modelling you wouldn't be able to extrude that, but because it's massing you can. It just sets it to a default height, and then you change it with the grips. So this one, you would need to select all the top edges and then move them up and down. It's a bit fiddly, but you can do that. But normally, if you have a lot of standard heights, you can make levels and then align those edges to your levels. Only in certain cases. So here you can, if I select one edge, it'll give me the dimension. But no, there's no extrude to a height, no. So if you select edges, in this case, it'll give me the height, but you watch if I change this. Yeah, that's right. And then it becomes a bit tricky because, well, you can do it in yeah, well, I don't think you can group them either. Yeah, unfortunately, but yeah. So look, I think they tried to make the interface a bit too not user-friendly but accessible. But then because of that, there's a lot of tools that maybe it should have that it doesn't. But if you think about it, you can achieve a lot of things that you need, but then it can be really painful when you can't just make, say, a point like this go to the height you want. But if you know you're doing a lot of that sort of work, you can set up things like reference planes, levels, and other elements that you can align to, and it does work pretty well. And here it will, okay, normally it would snap. There it doesn't want to, but again, I know I could get it to align. Well, I'll show another technique. Using the align tool, if I choose, say, this edge, oh no, I got the wrong thing. I got the face. So what do we use to get one exactly? Tab's your option key. So tab there to get that top edge, and then if I choose that edge over on the right, no, it's not doing it. Yeah, it didn't do what I wanted. Yeah, so that can be interesting, but yeah, see, it's a bit painful. But anyhow, in the end, you would get it to all line up, and so maybe what I should have done from the beginning was make this edge go to 3000, and no, it's still not going to behave. Anyhow, so a better way would probably be to have another element that's at the height I want. So, yeah, it's not a perfect system, but it's still pretty powerful. And if it's a solid, then it's quite different. So if I extrude this one, then it's much easier to set the whole thing to a height because we can just choose that surface on the top. Remember that option we've got here to choose by face, click on the surface, and then, of course, we can type in a measurement for the height of the box. But, you know, it's almost like SketchUp when you start to get to this level.
But the other step is not a solid block because you didn't build it up.
Exactly, that's right. But that can be a really powerful thing because sometimes you want to work with the surfaces and you can pick walls and other things. So even if you just want to do sloping walls, that can be a really good technique because if we have even just a line and create a form, then you can build on that surface and you can go forever almost. You can start creating forms from the edges of that surface and then keep building away. So it's a really powerful tool. And if you ever wanted to do those sort of faceted surfaces, that's...
When I was trying that stupid triangle pyramid thing.
Oh, I would have shown it, wouldn't I?
No, we talked about it.
Oh,
but
right.
I think we decided having a family object was easier.
Oh, yeah, if it's a regular shape, yeah, then, yeah. But no, I've done quite a few options for making pyramids. There is a bit of an issue with Revit and triangular surfaces, which is a shame because lots of other programs are set up to begin with triangular surfaces because they're the simplest. Yeah. You would think so, wouldn't you? But no. Yeah, for surface modelling, it is the basis of surface modelling. But massing in Revit, unfortunately, tries to get you away from triangles. It works better with rectangles. It's just how it is. Yeah, you can do triangles though. I've done it. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's literally the case. But yeah, so look, if you do need triangles though, I've got some methods for that. But honestly, if I was doing a lot of, what is it, Story Hall in Melbourne, the green ARM, yeah, you don't know that, you know it.
Yeah, the green thing that grows out of the hall.
I've got to show you because it's one of these classic things.
I believe you, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Val?
No, but chill.
Really?
Yeah.
So if you want to do things like that, you can definitely make Revit do that, but I wouldn't. I would go into 3ds Max. It's brilliant. It's got poly modelling tools that are made to do things like this.
And I think are there more options than
Oh yes, oh, of course, for modelling, absolutely, yeah. So anyhow, that's just to give you some basic ideas about modelling with massing. And the final thing I'll say there, just about the general things on massing. When you get a gizmo like this, where the arrows are not pointing in the standard directions, do you remember what to do to change it to X, Y, Z? Exactly, spacebar. Yep. Spacebar. So spacebar toggles between, guys, yep. So toggles between X, Y, Z and the object's axes. Right, so notice how these arrows come from the edges, and that can be really useful when you want to follow the edge that you already have.
and that's for
The other one just goes back to X, Y, Z. Yep.
what was the non-XYZ called?
The object's axes, I suppose. That's just what I'm calling them. Yeah. Follows the edge that's already there. Exactly, that's a better way, yeah, trajectory of, yeah, that's it. Yeah. That's it. That's a good term. Yep. So, yep, trajectory. So, okay, so we've got these different solids. I might get rid of some of these and just go back to the ones that are in the building. So my 2 fire stairs, I'll extrude those and we can bring them up to the height they should be later. Another thing I'm really used to now, actually, does it have it in 2019? Levels? Oh, the colourful will come in a second. Yep, absolutely. Yeah. So now, levels, oh yeah, they're just turned off. Levels can be turned on in 2019, if you haven't seen that. Yeah, and you can align to levels. So if I want to bring it up, say, that's the roof level, and then I can just... oh yeah, 19, that's right, yeah, sorry, yeah.
So this option is only available when you do masks?
No, it's always there. Yep. So I brought it up in the, so I just put VV, and it's in annotation categories. You've got the option to turn levels on. So, and it's on, in 2020 it's on by default, but I think 2019 you've often got to turn it on. Or do you? I think it's put there by default with some of the new templates too. So I've got these basic massing shapes, and then, so then the foyer might only be, well, let's say it's got a mezzanine, so it's going to get, or not a mezzanine, but it's open to the level above, so you might want to, so again, create form, and then align it to level 1. Level 2. Yeah. And then let's say this back part is only 1 story. So again, create form, and then align to level 1. So then we want them all to look different. So you've got a massing material which would already be set, and I might just finish the mass so that you can see it'll look a little bit different sometimes, but not too different. And then if we go back and again edit in place, to change the material of each of the elements, you can do it by face, but it's better to do usually the whole element. So with tab, you can select the element, and just keep an eye on the status bar down here. When you hover and then press tab, it'll tell you when you've got the element, and then you click to select. Just like solids, you've got to go over to properties to change the material. You can just set it there, and might take a minute to load the materials. They're out. So then you'll have massing materials. So these are there usually by default. So you'll, yeah, and they're nothing special. They're just a material that's had that's got transparency. I'll show you all the settings. I've made those actually. So there might be, let's see, it might be called default mass. Yeah, you'll have those at least. Yeah, default mass zone. I'll start with that one if you've got that. So here we are. Yeah, so I'll duplicate that. So I'll call this mass 5 stairs. Lovely. And then don't forget, it's a good reminder, keep an eye out for the sharing notification. When you see a number over the hand, that's a bad thing. It's the worst decision they ever made with Revit to let you do that. And yeah, so when you see materials changing and you don't expect it, it's usually because you haven't taken care of that. No. It's always, yeah, whenever you duplicate a material on the list on the left, it doesn't duplicate the appearance. It keeps it linked to the original. So duplicate the appearance too, just out of habit, and that avoids that problem. The other option is to make new materials from scratch, and then you don't have that problem, but then we have to do all the settings again. So it's worth it just to duplicate both. Yeah, that's it. So duplicate the appearance, and then it's fine. So here, unfortunately the thumbnails don't always update straight away, but there we go, it's not too bad. So we'll just put in a colour, so fire, I suppose, so red. Well, fire escape though, maybe, no, we'll say red. Yeah, we're trying to escape the red, but I'm overthinking
Blue,
it.
right?
Yeah, that's right, yeah, that's it, but I'll keep it as that, and we'll use blue for bathrooms or something. So, yeah, so, and then, well, red should be food, shouldn't it? So maybe red can be...
Food.
Yeah, red can be food and fire stairs can be... I do green for some reason. No, blue. You want blue.
No, I think red fire is fine.
Yeah, red and fire makes more sense to me.
Okay.
Food's more brown.
Yeah, or green. Don't
Yeah.
they say like green?
Well, in hospitality, though, that's a real secret. Yeah, red and yellow are the colours. That's why McDonald's, obviously, but not just them. Look at every big chain that sells food. They all have red. Yeah, apparently.
And yellow.
That's the theory.
Yellow.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So you're going to do red and yellow. Orange.
Yeah, let's do orange. Yeah. Oh, it is. That's why. Yeah, green should never be food, and that's why I'll say the colour vision supposedly evolved so that they need to avoid the leaves and eat the fruit. That's the theory, but who knows if they can ever prove that. So there we are. So that's changed the thing that I didn't want to change because.
She said peach.
Yeah, I was trying to do orange, but when it's transparent, then yeah. So we'll say that's the food area, and then we're going to make another one that. So I'm going to rename this, and we'll call it mass. That's going to be food. Well, it's actually the foyer, but yeah, let's just say food. I want to put the restaurants in there. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm obsessed with.
Well, that'd be great.
Yeah, restaurants that have, not the hotels that have good restaurants make such a difference. But anyway, so the fire stairs, so fire, and again, not forgetting to duplicate the appearance, and then set colour. So it's all pretty simple stuff, and this is something I'm sure you can all do if you have a basic understanding of massing.
So
And
this would be really useful when you're putting in the council and you're showing them.
you'd think so, wouldn't you? But they don't care. No, planners are in a different world.
So it's just to
Yeah,
impress.
they care about the site plan and seeing the area of deep planted soil and the site coverage and the floor space, but no, they don't care about your design. No, you'd think so, but no.
So who's interested in seeing
This, it's a tool for you to work out your design. Yeah, and your design teachers. And if you're lucky, you might have a client who's maybe a little bit interested, but they're probably not that worried about how you come up with all these good ideas. But when the space functions really well and the areas make sense together, then they'll appreciate it maybe. But yeah, design teachers and your assessors are definitely going to be really fascinated. Well, no, but I mean, again, lots of great architects and designers do this. Look at again. I'll try and show you the book on. In fact, I'll show it now. So it's in the video. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's not. I mean, I use it in my own work, and yeah, mostly for work that other people in academia are looking at. But still, there's a great book if you're interested in this. It's not just a purely academic exercise. So, Precedents in Architecture is the book. Have any of you seen this? If you're interested in diagramming, this is the Bible. Yeah, did I show you? Yeah.
Well, didn't you load some of this on Revit? Oh, yeah.
Probably. Yeah.
I didn't look at it, but I
It doesn't have massing, but it's got things you could set up a massing model and then do these sorts of diagrams over the top. Yeah, it's a brilliant thing. Yeah. So,
It's also in the share drive.
Is it?
yeah. Oh, did I put the whole book there, did I? Oh, did I? Oh, that was nice of you. Okay. I didn't think I found the PDF.
we were none of us looked at it, but
Oh, okay. You didn't go home and do diagrams for practice? Yeah.
No, I'm pretty sure you put it all up.
I thought I only could get some examples. Yeah, I could only get some pages, yeah.
I think I found it and sent it to us.
Yeah.
Like to Nadine.
But you know, when I was doing my undergrad one, we had to do all of these diagrams for every single design. We had to do every one, all 10 of them, or more. Some of them have, 12.
Yeah, I don't fully understand how they work either.
Oh yeah, read the book and you'll see. Yeah, it's great. It's a really good thing to try. And so the diagrams are so simple, some of them, and then you realise
It's a bit like Ching, isn't
it's similar. Yeah, it's same here.
it?
Ching.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's got similar ideas. So anyhow, that might help you. So if you want to do that sort of diagramming, maybe I'll just do one more mass. So I want to go back to my plan, and then I'll just do another mass. Now you can do them in separate families. So you finish the mass, then you can do another separate extrusion as a separate element. That sometimes is helpful, but here I'm just going to do them all in the one. And it's easy for me to get back to see the mass only because I've got that as a view. And so I'm just going to create a form and align that with the, let's go to the parapet. Yeah, that's the envelope. And there we are. So very basic massing, and you can do much more interesting things because you've got a design idea maybe that you're not just making up on the fly like me. And so what I'd normally do then is get we'll tidy up the levels a bit, or you can hide the levels, but I want to show you how you can use some graphics, basic graphic techniques to get this to be a bit more presentable, even with the levels, because it's good to see the levels. In fact, no, I'll show you a different approach. You can also show the levels by using mass floors. And so this is where it would have made sense to have maybe some separate massing. Yeah, I'll show you that. So say you've realised that you actually want to have one of those elements in a separate group or a separate family, technically. Have you ever wondered how to do that? Say you've done a bunch of solids and they're all grouped together, and then you want to separate them. Or you want to go the other way, you've done a bunch that are separate, and you want to combine them into one, which is probably even the more common thing. You can do it. You'd think so, wouldn't you? But it's not that simple. Yeah, but there is a way. Okay, so what you do is you copy and paste.
No.
I know. You'd think there would be. They should have a way. They should by now. But I don't think a lot of the developers realise all these things. They're so busy putting all these new whiz-bang features in, they forget some of the basic things. But there's a way. So if we select that object, now you'd be tempted to cut it, but that could be a problem. So instead I'm going to use copy to clipboard, finish it, then back to massing and site, and I'll go and make a new in-place mass, and then go to modify, find the paste option, and then you'd think they'll give you a line to same place, but they don't, because they're not that nice. So instead we're going to choose paste from clipboard, and the thing is it starts in the same spot. Yeah, it is, yeah. So then we can just type 0, enter, and it puts it in the same place. So now I've got to go back to the original one. So I've got to finish this mass, go back to the original, make sure it's the right one, and you might have to use tab, or you can just hover over one of the other edges and make sure it's the one that's got everything. So yeah, so then edit in place, and then I can select the outside bit that I copied, making sure I get the whole thing, and delete it, finish, and so now I've got that one in its own group. And I wanted to do that because now I want to put in some mass floors. You can see my floor plates, but I didn't want them chopping through all those other masses and making it look a bit ugly. So then we're thinking, okay, I've done that, but the levels maybe were better because these mass floors, even though they're kind of interesting, they cover everything else. So, but I did that on purpose so I can show you how to fix that, because there are lots of options, like using this override graphics option. So there's a few options. So firstly I'm going to select everything. I just want the mass floors. So I'm going to go to filter and turn off mass, and then I've just got the floor plates. So then I'll right click and then go to override graphics and view by element, and I'll just turn on halftone, and I'll show you what that effect would be. So it just makes it a bit fainter, but I want to do more than that. Go back to filter, mass floors, easiest way to select them, and then again right click override graphics and view, So this is a great feature if you haven't used it. You can override the graphics of virtually anything and get lots of really interesting graphics without having to go into Illustrator or InDesign or Photoshop. So again, by element. So this time we'll look at the surface transparency. I'm just going to bring that up to, let's say, 40. And now I've got nice see-through floor plates. Yeah, I should have just applied. You're spot on. Yeah, I should have. So that's right, and you can stay in the dialog box. So that's the point of apply. And so if I go back into override, by element, and now you keep that up, and then just experiment. So if we move this, and the nice thing is when you hit apply with Revit, this is one thing they got right, it shows you the result of your change without them being selected, which is a really nice feature. So yeah, so you can test it out, and so I want them fairly faint but still visible, and that's probably a nice way of showing things.
Can you get rid of at the moment you've got this shape, this vertical shape, it's got the same effect on it. Can you get rid of the vertical shape altogether so you've just got the floor?
Oh, what do you mean the fire stairs? Or
No,
the
this shape changes the building envelope.
yeah, you could. Yes, if you want to do that. Okay, so what you do is you'd go into filter. Yeah, so I'll just... Yeah, sure. So then you can definitely... I can't hide it, I don't think. Well, let's see. If I hide it now... is it going to hide the floor plate? No, there we go. So you can hide it. Yeah. So, yeah, that's not a bad idea. And then, so what you could then do is say, right, I'm going to make this my fire egress diagram, let's say. You don't need to do that, but you need to do other similar sorts of diagrams. So I'll duplicate this view and let's rename it and call it fire egress. And then, well, it's a good chance to go over a bit of BCA stuff. We've got two fire escapes in the middle of the building, and we want to make them work as a fire escape for a new fit out. So what's the main requirement for those fire stairs? Enclosed, yeah, absolutely.
Distance between them.
Certain distance apart, yep, so we've got both of those things. They're enclosed and they're separated enough. The distances to the points on each level are okay. So then, what we say, the distance to the exit, well, these are the exits, but to open space, yeah. So we've got to have a connection to open space, a horizontal exit, in other words. And so they either need to go through the ground floor level or they can go through the basement and across and then up from the basement too, which is what would probably be done in this building because it's got a car park. Maybe just to keep it simple, I'll do it on this level. So edit in place, and I can quickly put in a new mass to connect. Let's just do it in the most direct way. So again, notice how you've got to check and be on top of the placement plane. It seems to always want to go back to the last thing, and that's not what I want. So here, I'll just take it to the edge, and a good little trick there, don't try and line it up with everything. If it's not working, just line it up with what you can, and use the align tool afterwards to line up the other edges. So then we can extrude or create form with this shape and maybe align it at least with level 1. Then I want to have the same material, but I'm fairly sure if I join it to the other one, it'll pick up that material anyway. Yeah. And then we could do the same on the other side. Let's see actually if it'll do a joined element. I don't think it will, but I'll give it a go. So mirror draw axis, and I'm going to try and snap to the midpoint of so I'm trying to get the midpoint of that's it, that one. Sorry? Yeah, so that's, it's a different size, but we can, it's at least aligned on the outside, and then align it this way, and all those little things are handy. Yep, that's it. You can do perfect line simulations in theory. So there we are. So I've got my fire egress. Yeah, that's it. And so then what you might do is lock the view, and you'll see why this is important in a second. So I've set an isometric. You know the corners of the cube always give you a perfect isometric. And then I'll... Oh, I haven't done that yet. So yeah, I'll finish the view, and then down here you've got the option to save orientation and lock view. And that'll be important, you'll see in a second when I go to do the extra graphics. So just bring this back. I should line that up, but that's my basement, so I'm going to not worry about that, so I'll hide it. Alright, so I've got my Fireguess view, and then I want to put some more diagrammatic lines over the top. So I'm making a sheet. We don't want all that title block stuff. Just want a blank page. That'll do. And I don't even want the border though. I'll live with it. So I can't. Yeah, sorry, I just can't. Okay, so I'm going to put the Fireguess view onto that page and turn the title off because we don't want any unnecessary annotation. We do most of the layout and presentation work in InDesign, of course, but where Revit's brilliant is that you can use detail lines, just setting it to title, no line, no title, viewport, no title. Yeah. So, it's a brilliant option, and then that way you get a nice clean view, and so then you might have tried to draw detail lines in 3D views and not had any luck, because you can't. Right? So you can't draw in 3D views, you'll see detail lines are disabled, so you might have gone to draw model lines instead and gotten into all sorts of trouble because model lines will come up in every view, and you don't want that either. This is diagramming, so we only want it in certain views. So, again, on a page or a layout, you can draw, or a sheet, sorry, you can draw detail lines. And so I like to make lots of different coloured pens for this sort of diagramming. So on the Manage tab, you can go to, sorry, I'm brain dead, additional settings, and then line styles. So you've got then the plain default pens that you can get with your Revit template. And so I'll start with a new, they call it a subcategory, that just means a new pen. And then, what do you want? Red, heavy lines. Or just red heavy will do. So of course we're going to set the colour to red. And then the line weight, you'll have to go and check what your line weight values are, but I might try to say 4, which is a fairly heavy pen. And then I'll just test that one out. So, and then detail lines, and make sure I choose my new red heavy pen. Doing too much red here, I want to chip up in different colours. Yeah, let's do that. And so we might be saying that we've got some different pathways in here. That's not heavy enough. On this AO sheet, that's probably far too light. So we can go back and adjust that. A bit of trial and error sometimes with the pen styles. Oh, there's a good reason. It's actually a really sensible thing. It's one of the best things about Revit. But yeah, it's not obvious at first, so I'll show you that. It's good. So if you go under additional settings to line weights, right now, I know why you're asking because you must be using AutoCAD a lot to do your line weights. Yeah, you would be. In your layers, you set your line weights, but also maybe you've done it in Revit, or maybe just drawing as well. Yeah, but you have done it. I know you've done it in AutoCAD, so because you all did it in your last assignments that I've seen. Yeah, right. So in AutoCAD, this has been a problem for years. For 40 years, people have been struggling with this because you would have, let's say, a wall layer for cut and a wall layer for not cut, projection or elevation or whatever. Oh, okay. So you'll say, okay, walls when they're cut in plan, what's the line weight? Let's say 0.35 is pretty standard. So let's say 0.35 is the line weight you've decided. There's no rule because it varies according to your own style, but it should be heavy when it's cut. And so let's say 0.35 is pretty standard. and then when it's not cut, sorry,
That's not cool, unless you change his intro. I think that's the one.
so yeah, so when it's not cut, what would the line work at? 0.2, 0.18, something like that, in projection, so it's lighter. But does that apply for every scale? No. Right, so in a detail, those line weights are going to be much heavier, and then in a site plan, those line weights are going to be much lighter. And you naturally do this when you're drawing, you just manually make it lighter or heavier. With AutoCAD though, you have to make a bunch of extra layers for every different scale. So you end up with dozens of layers just for your walls. So that was always a problem. And there are things in Revit called, what are they? They're plot styles, not colour-dependent plot styles, but just pure plot styles. I won't bore you too much with it, but you would have seen in AutoCAD, there are CTB files that you use for your pen assignments, like monochrome, when you choose that when you're plotting. That's a CTB file. Yeah. But you'll come across this. When you're doing the job, anyone who uses AutoCAD to produce their drawings would instantly know this because you do it every day. And I'll show you, it's easy. So here we are, CTB. That means colour dependent.
It happened right at the end of the assignment.
Yeah, I know. Oh, that's right, that's it. So, but they tried to get around it and they brought in this new one called STB, plot style or style dependent tables. And they did have the option of setting different line weights for different scales. But it just confused everyone so much. Most people struggle to even understand CTB files, let alone STB. You might not have.
I think we were just told, because that was in that weird period where Tanya was here and it was sort of just do it this way.
That's right. Don't export to PDF because you've got to set your plot styles up in the page setup first. Yeah. Yeah, sure. Yeah, you have to. Yeah. And look, as long as you choose the right template, then it'll always be CTB, which is simpler. But then you have to go and make different layers for all the different line weights. And so Revit, they went, right, let's get away from that and actually set it up so you can easily have different line weights for different scales. So that's why there isn't an option to set a line weight directly because it is all dependent on your scale. So you can see there, pen 4, 0.7 at 1 to 10, 0.5 at 1 to 20, and so on. Now don't ask me what the scale is when you're on a page, because I don't know, but I'm pretty sure it's in the middle. It's not 1 to 1. I think it would be, but it's not. Oh, of course. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, your line weights do change. Yeah. You don't have a choice. That's just what it does. Yeah. So, yeah, and most people don't even notice, but if you look closely, you will see the difference. And it's really obvious on a site plan because if the line weight wasn't changing, all the lines would just read as a blur of lines. So again, when you are working with detail lines, you set a pen, and so I've been choosing pen 4, which again is fairly heavy, but not heavy enough, so we'll just go back to the line styles and make the red one heavier. I'm going to go up. So normally I wouldn't use anything higher than about 6 or 7, but we'll go to 7. That's going to be really heavy. But that's what I want. And then I'll make some more. And you can get a really graphical sort of look. So then we can go, right, we need some more colours. So green. Heavy. And yeah, we'll stick with the same way. So again, when I draw detail lines then, and I really wish I had the analysis drawings I've been doing lately that I could show you where I've got lots of these lines. Oh, of course, yeah, that's it. You just set them once and that's it. So yeah, that's right. And so you can do all sorts of diagramming then to show pathways and connections and different things. So? Oh, well, I'm probably more axo or isometric rather than perspective. You can do perspectives, but axonometrics, yeah, probably a bit clearer. And so you can do those diagrammatic sorts of lines, and then you can also label everything. You can do text in those views as well. So maybe if it is for fire egress, then you'd have, lines that show the path of travel. and maybe on one level you'd show your distances, but could get a bit complicated, but that's something you could do. And then again, with text, the text tools in Revit are pretty good. Not as good as InDesign or Illustrator, but still pretty good. And let's say, well, yeah, no, yeah, no, AutoCAD text, it's painful. It is. Yeah. Now, SketchUp's accessible and it's got some good things. I'm coming around. I don't.
Dan has faint praise.
Yeah. It's not my favourite tool, but it does the job. So you can, play around with all the options you've got for arrowheads and things. I don't really go too much into that, hopefully, but it's good that you can add arrows where you want as well, which I think is nice. So you can add extra arrows if you don't know about that, and subtract them and add them on the other side, and lots of things. So it's a good annotation tool, but if it's not doing what you want, you can always go into InDesign and you get a lot more options there. If you're fussy about kerning and leading and all that graphic stuff, which you're apparently meant to be looking at, because interior design apparently has that attention to detail with the formatting. And
What's kerning?
kerning is the spacing between the...
Oh. Can I say someone important who was in first year?
Yeah. I wasn't
It does matter a
with
bit.
that program.
It's worth thinking about. So Revit doesn't give you that. Yeah,
You can change the letter.
yeah. And then lettings the other way. It's all from the days. Huh? No, Revit can't do that. Yeah. InDesign, Illustrator, all the full-blown graphics programs. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Do you remember tracking?
Yep.
I just don't remember the terminology.
Yeah, the word spreads out.
I probably would do it here.
I don't know the terminology.
Yeah. Because you don't have, kerning and leading's not that important for this. So. That's right, yeah, so you can manage it globally. It's got better tools for managing lots of text than InDesign and programs like that, where it's a bit more fiddly. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So hopefully that'll give you enough to do some diagrams that will definitely keep Johnette and Dinah happy, because they want that. And one thing I know that they really want you to look at is these two main terms, aspect and prospect. They didn't use those terms. They said views and daylighting, but that's what they mean. So daylighting relates to orientation. Orientation is always to do with true north or true south, depending on whether you're from the northern hemisphere or the southern hemisphere, but it's always southern hemisphere. I suppose that's where we are. I'm thinking about relocating to a colder place, but yeah. So that's again aspect and prospect. So aspect is you'd think it would relate to views, but it's actually again relating to orientation, which is again all about the sunlight, natural lighting. And then prospect is your views, and they're really important. Yeah. And that's really important, so I'll give you a tip. Anyone doing the tram sheds, you've got those sawtooth roofs. So you can show in a diagrammatic way how you've got to get both ample light and some sort of view out, because that's a big problem. I've actually worked on buildings just like that, where you've got to get the height of the bedrooms just right so that they don't just have light coming from the windows above, they can actually see out of those windows a little bit. It does make a big difference to the space, and especially if it's a certain kind of space. And a couple of other terms that might help you that were given to me years ago when I was doing these sorts of assignments. Vista. Vista, similar to views, but it's a bit different if you look it up. Vista, and what was the other one? Axis. Oh yeah, so you've got some more there. Having some axes that are defining elements in your proposal are handy. But
Is it ISO lists?
oh, I've never heard of it.
Oh, yeah, like the release kind of prospect.
Right, yeah. Vista is almost like pretty much, yeah.
So it's how much you can see out of windows.
Pretty much, yeah.
Or how much you can see from an axis.
Yeah. Yeah, but then I suppose it's almost the primary view, maybe, and then you can also make the design part of this stuff, or
So, yeah.
It's like Japanese framing the view with how they position where the
So,
person should
yeah, but a view that, like, you know, what you might see from the window, or an isovist is on plan showing you what you can see.
the periphery of it.
Yeah, so like the building might be in the way, sort of show you going past it. It's almost like the building is the sun, and then what you can see around it.
Okay.
and that should probably do it. But if you want to get something really technical-ish, try Chrome. What is it? No, I've got the wrong term. It's
Magnum.
no, it's oh god, it's going to come to me. Psychromatic charts. That's it. Psychromatic, yeah. So
Psychology of colour.
it's perception of temperature. Yeah. Yes. Is it psychromatic? Yeah. Yes.
Matrix must be colour.
It's in my little notes on.
Thermochromatic.
Yeah, you'd think it would. Yeah, I think I've got the term a bit wrong. It's definitely got the
So
psycho.
you can see inside the guy's brain.
Sort of, yeah. It's all about perception of. Because it's temperature and humidity combined, pretty much. But psychrometric chart. That's it. Yeah, psychrometric.
Psychrometric.
Yeah.
Seems like colour rather than
Yeah.
No, that's psychometric. Yeah. That's like your disc profile.
No, I mean you do.
Myers-Briggs test.
Yeah. Yeah, he loves things like that, yeah. So I've got some here just so you can see some examples. And I don't want to get you too bogged down in this, but it could be relevant for some of your designs. And it's just taking a minute to open, of course, because Acrobat is a truly awful piece of software. It's a shame because it does so many good things, but it's also painful. There we are. Okay, so... And this, you've got this file on the P drive if you want to go back to it. So there we are. There's the start for one of these. That's a stereographic diagram, and these are all sorts of things. Thermal comfort, that can be an issue, but again, you're doing interiors, not architecture, so don't get too carried away with that. Yeah, oh, if you did, I mean, Dinah especially, God, she's keen on you showing that you can do all the architectural stuff as well as interiors, which is really what it should be. I think interior design's actually got a better take on architecture in a lot of instances. That's it, yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's one. And I've got a whole series of them in here. Yep. There we are. So there's one. So the comfort zone. And again, it's all about balancing humidity and temperature. And there should be some here with different regions. Yeah, so when it's too hot and too humid. You can Google it and you'll find them, or just go to that file. It's got... oh, well, with thermal... Yeah, so you're not going to do thermal analysis. In what architects are taught is that you calculate... stretch my memory. Solar, insulation, thermal conductivity, convection, yeah, it's a lot of calculations. Yeah. So, but you can get an idea and think about natural ventilation. That's a big thing these days because there's a debate about whether buildings should be fully sealed or not. Yeah, I know, I don't agree with it, but it's a huge... Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. That's it. I know I've got an issue with those, sorts of allergies, and I don't enjoy those spaces that are fully sealed. But that's one of the theories, like the passive house in Austria that started it all, is completely sealed, and all of the natural ventilation comes through heat exchangers that, transfer the heat or the cool from what's the air that's exiting the building. And so they're all processed, all the air is processed. And, I don't think it's a great idea, but that's the debate. Yeah. I mean, maybe it was perfectly clean in a brand new building, but then you've got all the chemicals and things that are used in building products, and so I think natural, if you can do it with convection currents, is maybe a better approach, but not all environments are suitable for that. Very hot regions and very cold regions, so Northern Europe and anywhere near the equator, it's not an option. Those places, especially near the equator, wouldn't function without air conditioning. So I don't know what you do. Even though, actually, having said that, there are places that are as hot as anywhere in the world that have natural cooling systems that have been around for centuries that work.
They're normally quite dry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's it. The humid ones are the ones that were not that hot populated until, yeah. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and I know.
Does anyone know the importance of 35 degrees wet bulb?
Oh god, this is going to stretch my head. Memory,
35 degrees wet bulb.
Yeah, that's the limit. Yeah. When it's
So it means that wet is when the bulb is moist, and dry is when it's not. So
Yeah, I know.
it's the actual thermometer.
Oh.
So one is covered in a wet sponge, and then they measure temperature that way, or one that's just dry like normal. But as soon as it goes over 35 degrees wet bulb, you're into the death zone.
Yeah.
So if you're out in that, I don't know, is it 2 hours or something? Because you can't lose heat.
Yeah. Whereas
If
dry,
you're
I think
in,
it's
that's why humidity with temperature is the killer, not the heat. Was it humid as well, was it? But the big area that it will affect is, the Gulf states around that. Especially Pakistan, India.
Oh, right.
Punjab.
Oh, definitely. Got some relatives in there. And, but that feels quite
They'll
dry
be
where
around
they're...
for a bit longer.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 hours.
You better bring them and say you love them now.
Yeah, no, well, the guy that I know really well who grew up near there's adamant that he didn't need air conditioning, and it's near not far from the border of Afghanistan, and he said he grew up without anything, and it's all very weak for not coping in this sort of weather because it's quite mild, he thinks, and he's probably right. But anyhow, I don't know if you need to do diagrams that show all of those things, but it's something to think about. And so you can do little arrows to show ventilation and things like that. So it might give you some ideas. And you've got that PDF file if you're interested in going into those other things as well. Don't know if there's anything else, any other sorts of diagrams you're thinking about, or yeah. And then the brilliant thing for me, just to maybe tie it all together, is that it's all in the model with everything else.
Yeah.
That's why it's better than just using a graphics program like Illustrator, because it's there with the building and yeah. So maybe we'll finish off with that button that I started with, because on the Massing and Site tab you've got this button, which now will make a lot more sense because you can toggle massing on and off in any view with that one. But then the view that has the massing turned on in the view properties, it's on always. And that's the difference. So that VV, where you turn the mass on, once it's on there, that toggle doesn't do much. It doesn't do anything. But in the other views, it does. So hopefully I'll give you some ideas for a presentation and keep Dinah and Janet happy. And I know they've got some good ideas for progressing things beyond this, but daylight, and then also you can then try doing some rendering as well. So now what I should have mentioned, which we don't have time for today, but sorry. So if you want to do some rendering to show, just draft level rendering to show sunlight entering your spaces, you need to make sure that you've set true north, and that's something that I thought I had done in all of those files that I gave you, but you might need to check it. Yeah, I know we've gone through it with you, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm very confused by there's some really weird levels and stuff in there.
Right. Yeah, I didn't make those levels. Yeah.
But it's going to ask for your help to clean it up.
Yeah, well see, okay, to give you a tip there, if you want to try and make it a much cleaner file, what I'd think about doing is, you could rebuild it, but if you get a new file, a blank file, and then insert the ones I've given you into that file.
As a link to
Exactly. So the only way to insert the whole file, Yeah, and that way you can detach it or just remove it. Yeah. Well, you can turn the levels off when you're linking. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you can. So if you're not sure how to bring one Revit file into another, the only option, some of you have said it, is on the Insert tab, Link Revit. And then you can insert any Revit file into another file. So that might give you a little bit, yeah. But look, I know it comes up with the message, anything over 10 meg, it'll come up with the message saying it's going to slow down, but the NDX computer is going to handle it with those files. Yeah.
Base script, we've got a front and a back.
Yeah.
You can't put them together. They're different scales and sizes. You're all fit together.
They don't fit together. I'll have a look at it. So I thought you were all going to be working on them separately, but yeah, if they need to be combined, maybe I'll have a bit of a look at that. Yeah.
We're supposed to all start off with one, work on, but we've all different. One of us tried, and they just won't go. They've got different. A lot of us.
Because I did try combining them.
And obviously one person made up some dimensions, another person made up, and they don't.
Right. Yeah.
And the buildings are in relation to the sound.
Okay.
So I'm not sure which one's true, the plan or the...
They're probably both off in different ways.
That's why I haven't done anything. It's a headache.
Yeah.
You know the girl that did the fish market technology? She would have had it right.
No.
It's not even to scale.
Straight away, no.
Well, I know that she based it off a plan that was pretty right. And I did check.
PDF plan, but
Yeah.
it's not the right scale.
Right. The PDF plan you think's not right either. Oh.
Building.
Oh, right.
PDF plan, I'm assuming it's right.
Yeah, right. So is it too big or too small? Too small. Right. Well, then just make it bigger. Yeah, it was only to give you a basic indication, those files I gave out. And
I mean, I'm told.
possibly, yeah.
What I don't understand about the detail plan for this is how high.
Not that long. No. No, it's a simple building.
I've already built it in SketchUp, but
Yeah.
it's in SketchUp.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Oh, the fish market style would definitely just make it. It's such a simple building.
there are some things you
A day? Yeah, if you get onto it, yeah, a day. Because it's just a shell, and the main thing is getting the grid, the column grid, and go there and take photos to see how simple the walls. It's the cheapest construction ever, the outside walls, and that's all it is. It's just, yeah. So I'll finish the recording there, unless anyone's got any questions. But that's all good otherwise, hopefully. Yeah, great.